everyone. My name is Hemu, and today's we are going to discuss HTTP protocol in detail. The main agenda for this particular session, we will go through with all the things with regards to HTTP. We will go through what is HTTP request, what is HTTP response, and the main thing, what do you understand with the HTTP status code or HTTP response status code. We will go through with the HTTP header. We will discuss HTTP methods like get, head, option, trace, all these methods. Then this HTTP status codes, because in most of the interviews they will ask regarding these particular status codes. Basically, what is 100 series status code, then we have 200 series status code, 300 series, 400 series, 500 series, right? All these particular things we are going to discuss in detail by taking some example. Okay, so now let me just start with the HTTP. So this HTTP stand for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Means HTTP stand for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is a protocol used to access the data on the web or over the internet. Whenever we will try to open any website, let's suppose you have opened your browser and you have typed http://cnets.com. What used to happen when you will access this particular website, Sianets.com? What you will get the web page of Sianets.com, where you will get different interfaces, where you will get different type of information, right? Like, or maybe that information is some images you will get, right? Some text information you will get. So many things you will get there, right? So means what happening between your PC from where we have opened the cns.com and the server where we have hosted our website cns.com, server has sent lots of data, and that particular data we are exchanging over the internet, right? So what HTTP protocol used to access the internet access the data over the internet. The HTTP protocol can be used to transfer the data in the form of plain text, means we can able to load the plain text data, hypertext data, we can load the audio, video, and so on. Nowadays, guys, we used to open like YouTube. On YouTube, we used to watch the video, right? That time, what we are basically getting the video based traffic, which is coming through the HTTP protocol. Means HTTP protocol can hold any type of data like video, audio, files, anything. Okay. The Hypertext Transfer Protocol is an application level protocol for the distributed, collaborated hypermedia information system. This is the foundation for the data communication for the World Wide Web. Means like how the communication is possible, because without HTTP we cannot able to communicate with the internet. So means because we have a HTTP protocol, that is the main reason basically we can able to access the data through the web or through the websites. HTTP is a connectionless protocol. Just remember what HTTP is, a connectionless protocol. The HTTP client browser initiates an HTTP request, and after a request is made, the client waits for the response. The server processes the request and sends the response back, after which client disconnect the connection. So the client and server knows about each other during the current request and response only. Further requests are made on new connection, like client and server are the new to each other. And guys, let me tell you, like HTTP is a connectionless protocol, but at your transport layer, we will use TCP protocol, and TCP will holds your HTTP data. So the reliable delivery of the data is basically taken care by the TCP. Okay, HTTP make the it's a connectionless protocol, but TCP is a reliable transport protocol, right? And it establish the TCP connections, right? because first we have to go through with the TCP three-way handshake, and after that they will establish the TCP connection. Once that connection got established, they will basically start exchanging the HTTP data. HTTP is a media independent protocol, means we can able to basically transfer any type of data like your audio, video, files through the HTTP protocol. It's a media independent protocol. HTTP is a stateless protocol. As mentioned above, HTTP is a connectionless, and it is a direct result of HTTP being a stateless protocol. The server and the client are aware of each other only during a current request. Afterwards, both of them forget about each other. Due to this nature of the protocol, neither the client nor the browser can retain the information between different requests across the web pages. Just remember, okay? These are the some basic details of your HTTP. So guys, let me tell you, your HTTP protocol is a application layer protocol. It's a application layer protocol, or we can say HTTP is a layer 7 protocol according to TCP/IP. Sorry, according to OSI model or according to the TCP/IP model, it's a application layer protocol. We have a client where generally we have a web browsers. These web browsers act as a HTTP clients, and we have a web servers over the internet where basically we used to host our web pages, all these details. Whenever this client is trying to access any information from that web server, what they will start the TCP connection on TCP port 80. This is the default port for HTTP traffic. If we are using TLS or SSL, that time this connection will happen on TCP 443. In case of TCP port 80, first they have to basically go through with the TCP three-way handshake. Once this handshake will complete, they will basically, your client browser will send the HTTP request message towards the server, and server process this request message, and he will send the HTTP response. So means we have a HTTP request and we have a HTTP response. In case of TCP 443 or SSL communication, first they will complete the TCP three-way handshake, then they will complete the SSL handshake, and after that they will exchange the HTTP request and response messages, and these messages is encapsulated inside the transport layer security TLS, inside the TLS protocol. Okay. Example, the browser translated the URL like sianets.com into the following request message. So let's try to understand the HTTP request and HTTP response. So let's suppose what I did, I have opened my web browser and I have typed this particular URL, http://www.sianets.com/docs/index.html. So what will happen? Now my browser, it will generate the HTTP request message where it will use a HTTP method called get. We are trying to basically access /docs/index.html, and we are using HTTP version 1.1. The website URL is www.sianets.com. This is the domain name of your website. Then here we have some other detail like language. We are using English US. Then we have a like image. We will accept the image in zip format, in JPEG format and all, right? Then we have a encoding zip and dflat, right? Then we have a user agent, and here you will able to see your browser detail. Right now I'm using Mozilla Firefox. Here you will get the windows and other details. The server interprets the request received, maps the request into the program kept in the server, executes the program and returns the output of the program to the client. An example of HTTP response. Now this is the example of your HTTP response packet. Let's see. we will get HTTP response with the HTTP status code 200 here. This is the date with time, with the time zone. Server, they are using Apache 2.2.14 version. This server, this Apache server is running on Windows 32 based operating system. Like last modified details, all these details you will get here. Content type, connection is closed, right? And here you will have a HTML body. Now let's try to understand the HTTP request and response messages. Let me just do the coloring on it. Hypertext Transfer Protocol communication allows two types of messages to be transferred between the client and server. The first message is HTTP request and the second message is HTTP response. If you will go into HTTP requests are the messages sent by the client to initiate an action on the server. Now, this HTTP request, it has some detail. It has some detail. Or meanwhile, let me do one more thing. I have basically taken some of the capture here, and this you can see, if you will go here, like this is the source IP address 192.161.140, and this is the destination IP address. This is my server IP. This is the client IP. Source is client, destination is server. You can see they have go through with the three-way handshake, SYN plus connect, and after that you can see this HTTP message. This is the HTTP request message. Let me just go like that. Let me open this. Now you can see here, as I have mentioned, HTTP is a application layer protocol, which means you can see we have a layer 2 header, we have a layer 3 header, which is IP header, then we have a layer 4 header, this is your TCP header, right? And after that we have a HTTP header, and it's a application layer protocol. In HTTP header, if you will open it, you can see this is the request method. This is the request, HTTP request, right? You will get the details, host details, all these things. This is the full URL which we are trying to access, right? So you will get the details like that. Now let's try to understand the HTTP request properly. The HTTP requests are the messages sent by the client to initiate an action on the server. Now this HTTP request has some details, right? So let me go here. So the main component available in your HTTP request message is the very first thing. The very first thing which is available in your message is the request line. We have a HTTP request line. Then we have a HTTP request header. We have a request line. Then we have a request header. And after that, we have a request message body. This is the optional field. And this entire thing, request line and request header, is known as a request message header. This entire thing is known as a request message header. And this is your request message body. And the entire thing is known as a HTTP request message. Now let's try to understand here. Here, if you will see here, we have a request where we are trying to access one of the document on this website www.test101.com, and we are trying to access /doc/text.html file. So this particular line, This particular line is known as a request line. This particular line is known as a request line. This is the host. This is the website detail. From here till here, this information is known as a request header. Like we will accept the images in GIF format and JPEG format. Star slash star means we will accept all. Language, we will support English US. Accept encoding GZIP and DFLAT. These are the encoding method. User agent is Mozilla. Content length is 35. So till here, this detail is known as a request header, and entire thing is known as a request message. And after that, whatever data you will able to see here is your request message body. This is your request message body. Now what I can do, I'll go into my Vaishya capture. Let me go into this capture and let me just open this particular. Let me, yeah. Let me just expand this little bit. No. This is the real Vaishya capture, guys. If you will see here, let me just open this part as well. If you will see here, this particular thing is known as a request line. This is your request line, right? Then here we are using the get method, severity level, group request method is get, request URI is this, request version is this, host is this, user agent is Mozilla, right? Right. This is your request line, and from here till here is known as a request header. This part, request header, right? So that's the detail. Okay. Now, here also you can see with some colors the same information. We have a request header till here. This is your request line. This is the journal header details. Then we have a representation headers. This is your representation header, content type and content length detail. Here we have a whatever the more data is available. This data is also known as a, generally this data you can think like a request message body. Okay. So this is the information available into your HTTP request message. So request line, the first line of the header is called the request line, followed by the optional request header. The request line has the below mentioned syntax. So your request line generally looks like this. We have a request method name, request URI, then HTTP version. This particular detail available into your request message. We have a method, right? We have a request method name, which is get, this thing, right? Then we have a request URI and HTTP version. So this part is your request URI, and this is your HTTP version. Okay. request method name. HTTP protocol defines a set of request methods. So guys, HTTP have couple of request method. We have a get method, we have a post, we have a head, and we have options, right? The client can use one of these methods to send a request to the server: get, post, head, and options. We will discuss the HTTP request method in some time. Then we will request URI, specify the source, specify the resource requested. Version, like two versions are currently in use. We have a HTTP version 1.0 and HTTP version 1.1. So here you will get the version details. Then we have a request header. The request headers are in the form of name and value pairs. Multiple values separated by the commas can be specified as a request header. For example, request header name, request header value 1, request header value 2, like that you will have a request header. It's a like name and value pair. Like see here, we have a name, we have a value, name, value, name, value, name, value. Here you will see multiple values, name, value. Okay, so that is your HTTP request. This is your HTTP request header. Okay. Now let's try to understand HTTP response. HTTP response are the messages sent by the server towards the client. Means whenever your client will send any HTTP request, means in this request he will mention what he is trying to, what he will basically mention is whatever the information is needed to this computer, what he will put that information to, he will request that information in the HTTP request message with the server. Server send the reply, send the response against this particular request is known as a HTTP response. HTTP response also have a status line and it has a response header. The first line is called the status line, followed by the optional response header. The status line has the following syntax: HTTP version, status code, and reason phrase. Now let's try to analyze this HTTP response. So here if you will see, in the HTTP response message, we have a status line, we have a response header, and we have a response message body separated by a blank line. So this particular part is divided with one of the blank line, just remember. Like this is known as HTTP status line, which has a HTTP version, HTTP response code, HTTP status response code. Okay. The first line is called the status line, followed by the optional response header. This status line has the following syntax: we have a HTTP version, status code, and the reason phrase. So this part, this OK is known as reason phrase. And after that, we have a response header. Here you will get the date, server detail, last modified, e-tag, accept ranges, content length, connection, content type, right? And then you will see one blank line. And after that, you have a here HTTP response message body. HTTP response message body. Now let's try to first and see HTTP version. Here you will see the version detail, like what is the version, HTTP version 1.0, 1.1, status codes. So generally this status code is a 3-digit numeric number generated by the server to reflect the outcome of the request. And we are going to discuss these particular status codes and the HTTP methods in detail. Reason phrase gives a short explanation to the status code. Means here you will get the short explanation of the status code. Then common status code and reason phrase are like you will get 200, okay, 404 not found, 403 forbidden, 500 internal server error. These type of details you will get. These are some example. Okay. And after that, we have a response header. The response headers are in the form of name and value pairs. Example, response header name, response header value 1, response header value 2, and all. Okay. Now, so guys, this is the details you will get generally in the HTTP response. Same thing. This is your HTTP response header. This is the status line representation header, right? How the data is represented. Header details, journal headers, right? Server details and all. That's how you have a details in your HTTP response. Go here. Let me just open this HTTP response. Just taking some time to load. Let me just open. This is also one of the HTTP response. Finally, I got the response detail here. Now you can see. This is my HTTP transfer protocol. We have a status line. Response version. We are using HTTP version 1.1. Status code is 200. Response phrase is okay. Date, server is Apache, cache protocol, right? Expires, all that detail you will get. X powered by, so many things are there. Right? Here you will be able to see everything. Looks like this website is today a little bit slow. Then here you will able to see continuation packet, right? Here you will get this data. This is also like continuation packet, then data and all, right? In your HTTP header, okay? So majorly like, let me go into this HTTP header. So guys, this is a very good website, http.dev/headers. And here you will get all the details. What you will get all the data, request, content, right? Response, so many things you will get here. So I'll always recommend you can basically check this particular website for more details. Okay. Now, the most important part which is asked in your interview is HTTP method. So guys, in your HTTP, we have the first method called HTTP get, request for a web page or an object from the server. Then we have a put for sending a document to the server, then post for sending data information about client to the server, then delete, request to delete an object on the server. Then we have a head, request for information about a web page or a document, then trace, used to trace the proxies and tunnels in the path from the client to server, then option used to determine the server capabilities. So these are the couple of HTTP methods are available here. Now let's try to understand these method details first. Okay. STD protocol specify a set of request methods. A client can use one of these methods to send a request message to an HTTP server. The very first method is get. A client can use the get request to get a web response from the server. Head. A client can use the head request to get the header that to get a header that a get request would have obtained. Since the header contains the last modified date of the data, this can be used to check against the local cache copy. Post. Used to post the data up to the web server. Means if you want to post something towards the server, you can use the post method. Put. Ask the server to store the data. Means we can store that data into the server. Delete means we can able to send a request towards HTTP servers to delete some data. Trace. Ask the server to return a diagnostic trace of the actions it takes. Optionals. Ask the server to return the list of request method it supports. Here we will get what are the method which is supported by the server. Connect. Used to tell a proxy to make a connection to the another host and simply reply the content without attempting to parse or cache it. This is often used to make SSL connection through the proxy. So we have a connect method as well. These are the some HTTP methods, guys. Now you can go here. Let's try to understand the HTTP method. So here, guys, you will get couple of other method as well. Like we have a patch. This is the new method, right? It's available. See, the HTTP get method is called by the client to retrieve the current representation of a specified resource. It is the primary operation for most servers. Head. The HTTP head method is the same as the HTTP get, but only transfer the status line and the HTTP response header. No message body is included. Means there is no message body included. Let me just open both get and header here. You will get the more detail about the this method, right? Request, when you will send the request, it will send this particular data. In response, you will get this. Go here. This is the request. This is the example, right? Conditional get another thing. So if you want a more detail regarding the get method, post method, you can definitely check out this particular website. That is the reason I have basically opened this website. Then we have a option. The STD options method is called by the client to inquire about what operations are available for the specified resource or the server in general. You can just open, you can see the detail. You can read that particular detail, right? When you will send this particular field with option field to let's say server like example.ai, you will get a response like that, like it supports options, get, head, post, all these details. Okay. Let me just go and just copy this. Let me go and just paste here. Let me just see if that website is exist or not. Looks like it is not existing. Okay. So you will get the detail. This is for HTTP options. Now we have a trace. HTTP trace method is called by the client to perform a loop back test on the path to the specific resource or one of the proxy in the request chain. Let's open this method as the trace one. So for that, they will use like trace in the request line. Here you have a URL of your website, and in response, you will get this data. This data is going through proxy 1, proxy 2. That's how you will get that particular data. Delete means want to delete something, the std delete method is called by the client to remove the stray resource and all of its current representation from the server. In delete, you can get the details here. We will use the delete here instead of in your request line. You want to delete this notes.xml, right? And you will get the response, no content. Then we have a put method. The stray put method is called by the client to replace the stray resource and all of its current representation, if any, on the server. Means it is also used to create the resource. It means put we can able to basically create the resource, or we can able to replace the resources there. When we will use put in your request line, like new file.txt, this is the content of my text file. Then we have a post. The stray post method is called by the client to interact directly with the response. And here we have to use the post. Our browser will use here post. Okay. Connect. The stray connect method is called by the client to establish a tunnel to the origin server, identify the request target. Okay. So these are the details with regards to the HTTP methods. Now, the most important thing, guys, and let me tell you, let's suppose if you are going for any type of, if you have mentioned like proxy knowledge in your resume, then definitely they will ask this question regarding this HTTP status code. So response, HTTP response status code, the first line of the response message, the status line contains the response status code, which is generated by the server to indicate the outcome of the request. The status code is a 3-digit numbers. So generally, HTTP have around 5 type of status codes. We have a 100 series status code, which is known as a informational status code. We have a 200 series status code, which is known as a success status code. 300 series, which is known as a redirectional status code. 400 series, we have a client error status code. We have a 500 series, which is a server error status code. Means this 100 series, like request received, server is continuing the process. 200 means the request was successfully received, understood and accepted and serviced. Means you will get this 200 status code when your request received at the server, and server also process that request, and he has provided the necessary detail or necessary data to you. We have a redirection. Let's suppose your website is redirection is happening. So you're trying to access some website and into some link, and that time what some redirection is happening and you are going through some different link. That time you will see 300 status code, like further action must be taken in order to complete the request. 400 series 400 series status code you will see in HTTP response when there is a error at the client side. The request contains the bad syntax or cannot be understood. 500 you will get the server failed to fulfill an apparently valid request. The server failed to fulfill an apparently valid request means server is not able to fulfill that request. That time you will get the 500 status code. Now let's try to understand these status code one by one. Go here, go to into this HTTP status codes, information success, redirection, client error, server error and all, right? In 100 series, generally you have a HTTP status code 100 for continue, 101 for switching protocols, 102 processing, and 103 early hints. These are the generally 4 type of 100 series status codes you will able to see. An information response code informs the client that the request is continuing. The first one is continue. This means that the server in question has received your browser request header and it is now ready for the request body to be sent as well. Switching protocol. Your browser has asked the server to change the protocols and the server has compiled returning a response header before the rest of the server's response. Means here when we want to switch the protocol version or when we want to change the protocol, you will get the switching protocol status code 101. What you will get the status code 101. Let's try to read all of them in detail. The STD response status 100 continue is one of the information STD response written by the server. It indicates that the STD session is processing as expected and it asking the client to combine to the next step. The client can safely ignore this STD response if the STD request is complete. The STD response is only sent when the client include the HTTP header request field. And when you will get the response, you will check the Vaisha capture, you will able to see this thing. HTTP version 1.1 status code and the phrase continue. Like that, you will get the details. Okay. Now for 101, where you want to switch your protocol, HTTP response status code 101 switching protocol is an informational HTTP response returned by the server. It indicates that the HTTP session can continue and the server is switching to a new protocol. This response is sent when the client includes HTTP header request field. If your client request has a HTTP header request field upgrade as well as the HTTP request header field connection upgrade :upgrade, which is a mandatory HTTP request header. Means this particular detail will be available there. Connection is upgrade protocol name and protocol version. And this details you will get. Upgrade HTTP2, HTTP3 like that. And you will get this particular response with code 101 switching protocol. And after that we have S101 processing 10 code like HTTP response status code 102 is also known as a processing, is an informational HTTP response that is sent by a server to inform the client that there will be a significant delay before the final HTTP response is sent and that a potentially long period of the time will pass before receiving the final HTTP response. Means if there's any delay on the response, that time server will send a response with HTTP code 102 towards the client. You will get this particular data. This particular thing you will be able to see in your HTTP response if you did the Vaisha capture processing. Then we have 103 HTTP response status code 103 is also known as a early hints, is an informational HTTP response that can be used by the server to send HTTP header to a client in advance of a final HTTP response. It is used in conjunction with link header and it provides the client an opportunity to adjust accordingly. 103 early hints is used because HTTP response often contain links to the external resources that needs to be fetched before they can be used. Means sometimes what used to happen, maybe some of the text in index, some of the text data we are having into one server, maybe images we are having into some another server. So that time they will basically send you the links and you have to basically communicate with these particular links. Let me show you one thing. If I'll go here, let me just open a website called amazon.com. I'll click on inspect. Network. You can see there's a multiple links like media.amazon.com, right? Chromestatus.com, media, amazon.com and all, right? Because when this data is loaded, it will basically fetch from multiple locations. Okay. Okay, so that's how this particular things is happening. We have a status 200, 200, 200, right? Here we have a pending details. Let me just reload it properly. Okay, and meanwhile, if I'll go and if I'll type www.facebook.com. See, we have a status code 200, right? Then there's some pending detail. Some scripts, right? So multiple things used to happen basically. There's a one tool called Fiddler. We can use that tool for doing all type of testing basically, but I will not go into that much depth basically. Now go back here. So guys, when this early hint status code is used, you will get in response like 103 early hints. Okay. Now let's try to see the 200 status code. A successful response was received, interpreted, corrected, and has been accepted. So the thing is, if you are getting this 200, always remember 200 status code is always good. In 200 series, we have a multiple status code, and let's try to see all of them one by one. Maybe you don't need to remember all of them, but at least you should have a knowledge on it. That is very good. HTTP response status code 200 OK is written by the server to indicate a success. Means we got the response successfully from the server. The meaning of the success and the accompanying message body varies based on the HTTP request that was sent. Means whatever data we will get the data properly. You will get HTTP get 200. In case of head, you will get 200. Post, you will get 200. Put, you will get 200. In case of date, you will get 200, right? Optional, you will get 200. Means generally these are the method like get method, your get, head, post, put, delete, and options. It will use this HTTP code 200 basically. Then we have a 201, which is known as a created. HTTP response status code 200 created is written by the server to indicate that a resource was successfully created by the HTTP requirement. Means when we trying to create anything, we will send this particular method or we will send this we will basically, when we have sent one post method and we are getting this response like 201 created, means whatever data we want to create, it just created. Then we have a 202 accepted. HTTP response state code 202 accepted is written by the server to indicate that that a HTTP request has been received, although the processing is not yet complete. Ultimately, the HTTP request may not be fulfilled. So this, in that particular case, you will get this 202 response code. Then we have a 203 non-authoritative information. HTTP response status code 203 non-authoritative written by a proxy to indicate that the HTTP request was successful, but the message body has been modified. In that case, you will get 203 response basically. Sorry, this one. Non-authoritative information. Then we have a 204 is also known as no content. HTTP response status code 204 no content is returned by the server to indicate that a HTTP request has been successfully completed and there is no message body. Means there is no message body. Let me just try to check one thing. If I can have any capture for this. In GitHub, maybe you will get some captures with regards to that. Let's just wait for this to reload. Meanwhile, let me just go there. So this particular no content 204 code you will get when there is no content. Now 205 reset content. A HTTP response status code 205 is sent by the server, or it is written by the server to instruct the client to reset the document view. A document in this context can be an HTML form. For example, this HTTP response is similar to 204 no content status code. In that, no message body is included. Then we have a 206 partial content. A HTTP response status code 206 is written by the server to indicate that a HTTP request has been successfully completed and the message body contains the requested range of the data. Means we have received the partial data from the server. Partial content. Then we have 207 multi-status. HTTP response status code 207 is sent by the server in case where it is relevant to relay information about multiple resources. This is something somewhat different from the other 200 HTTP response status code because it does not signify the success of the HTTP request. Rather, it means that an aggregate block of HTTP response is being included in the message body. Then we have 208. Already reported. HTTP response status code 208 already reported written by the server in cases where a HTTP response has already been given with regards to a specific resource. A server ought for this to avoid repeating information about a resource, sometimes caused by the multiple bindings. Then we have 218. This is fine. HTTP response status code 218. This is fine. Is an unofficial HTTP response that is used especially by the Apache web server. It is used as a catch-all error condition that allows the passage of a message body through Apache when the proxy error override setting is blocked. Then we have 226 IM used. HTTP response status code 21226 is written by the server to indicate that it has fulfilled a GET request that was sent with a hyphen IM header included. And the HT response is the result of none or more instance manipulation. Let's see. Oh, I think here you will able to see the captchas in this format. 204 no content defined and all. Okay. Now we have a 300 series. Generally we use for the redirection purpose. So we have a 300 multiple choice. STD response status code 300 multiple, which is known as a multiple choice, is written by the server to indicate that more than one HTTP response is available as a result of the HTTP request. It is a client responsibility to select which of the presented option best fits their requirement. The HTTP response is catchable by default. If the default behavior needs to be overwritten, then the HTTP response must include the appropriate HTTP catching headers. So let's suppose we are trying to access this particular website where we are trying to fetch like tech-news data. So we will get the response with 300 code. We have these two links. Location is this, content is this, and other data, right? Now client needs to decide which one he needs to open when we have alternative things and all. 301 moved permanently. This is the most popular status code, right? And if you can test this code, like let's suppose, your Facebook, your YouTube, all these website is running on TCP 443. And if you will open them like that, like www.youtube.com, what will happen? That time they will send the request on TCP/80. So you will get a response from the server like with this 301 moved permanently code, right? And you will get the redirection URL like this website is now available on https://youtube.com. So HTTP response status code 301 is written by the server to indicate that the resource has been given a new permanent location, means location of the resource has been changed. We are trying to access example.ai. You will get it has just moved permanently with 301 code and new location is this. New location is this. Now you have to basically go into this location for opening the website. 301. In case of SAML also you used to get the 301. Then we were 302 found. HTTP status code 302, also previously known as a moved temporary, is written by the server to indicate that the client redirects to a new location specified within the location HTTP header. Because HTTP response is temporary, it is expected to be revalidated upon the next time the URI is requested. So you will get 302. Like we are trying to open this website and we are trying to access this content from that website, right? And the location of the new data is this. Then we are 303. See other HTTP response status code 303 is written by the server to indicate that the supplied location does not link directly to the recently uploaded resource. Rather than it links to an alternative page such as an upload confirmation message. The HTTP method used for the second HTTP request is always a HTTP get method. And you will be able to see this particular code. See other means we have to check this one. Then we have a 304 not modified. HTTP response status code 304 not modified is sent by the server in a limited number of cases. It implies that the HTTP request is safe, such as a get or head HTTP request, and the server conclude that the resource has not been changed since it was stored in the client cache. This is intended as a bandwidth conserving function, as the server does not have to retransmit the data that the client already had. 304 not modified. This particular state written by the server to indicate a successful HTTP request, yet there is no need to send the data associated with the relevant resources. 305 HTTP response status code 305, which is also known as use proxy, is deprecated STD status code written by an origin server to indicate that the requested resource can only be accessed through a proxy. 306 switch proxy. The HTTP response status code 306 is a reserved and unused status code specified in HTTP specification with the intention to redirect a client to use an alternative proxy and the new location to be valid for a specified period. Temporary redirect 307. HTTP response status code 307, which is known as a temporary redirect, is written by the server to indicate that the requested resource has been temporarily moved to a new location and was introduced in the HTTP 1.1 specification. 308 permanent redirect. HTTP response status code 308 is written by the server to indicate that the requested resource has been permanently moved to a new location. Then we have a 400 series client error. These particular 400 series status code is sent by the, is generally sent when there is a error at the client side. A client error indicate that the request can be completed because of an issue with the client or the syntax of the request. And you have so many 400 client error messages, and we have a 500 server error message. There are a long list, guys. So these two things I will cover on my next lecture, on my part 2.